right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, or really in the world right now, especially for everyone who pays attention to media. Joe Rogan basically being canceled right now, and just what he's going through in this situation with Spotify. I don't know if you've been living in the shadows, but ultimately Joe Rogan has truly just been attacked, and Spotify is in a situation right now where they potentially could remove Joe Rogan from working with them. And what I first of all want to say is that, like, the way Joe Rogan has handled the criticism and the accusations and the truth about what has happened, there's two core things that I want to highlight. Is like, there's the one side where there was a compilation video of him using the N-word over a 12-year period of thousands of podcasts for thousands of hours, that someone put this compilation using the N-word. And then there's also the aspect of him bringing on some world-renowned scientists, doctors, talking about the vaccine, and because of those two things, I think it started with the vaccine situation, and now I just feel he's being really attacked. I just wanted to really address it because, first of all, I think he's been handling it like a class act, especially the compilation video that's really highlighting him as if he is a racist. I do not believe that Joe Rogan is a racist. I believe that he has definitely used that word in a way that, just frankly, he shouldn't use it at all. And I think the way he handled it was authentic. And yeah, I just think that there's no leeway at all that we should have for anyone in media that ever uses that word, even though there's a lot of context missing. Regardless, he acknowledges it as that. Like, there's just, anytime you have to even acknowledge it, it's just not okay. And so he acknowledged that. And that video, that compilation video that's been dropped on the internet, came after him bringing on these doctors to highlight a different narrative than the left, a different narrative than the narrative that is really being pushed around the world around vaccinations. And I just think it's interesting, right? Like, Joe Rogan has the largest platform right now in the digital media space. He has 11 million listeners, more than probably CNN and every other media outlet combined. And yet, because he brings on people on his podcast that I believe, first of these are just conversations, right? He's just bringing on and having conversations, which he's done on both sides. It's not like he's just bringing people on that are like anti-vax. He brings on, what I love is he brings on people from both sides with diverse opinions to have conversations, which I think is so important nowadays. Like, we are missing that. And all of these big media companies that once were, I felt, more unbiased and allowed for different narratives. Even me posting things about COVID, like, I've gotten shadow banned and stuff like that. And Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, like so many of these companies have gotten attacked by government, by the left, and now have to like abide or else. And now that's happening to Joe Rogan because he has brought a different narrative for us to consider around these vaccinations and around COVID, and it's by credible people. I mean, people that are on the advisory board of COVID-19 for President Joe Biden, people who have 9 patents around the vaccine mRNA vaccinations. And so it's just interesting to me that when he brings these individuals on that have a different opinion, and it's now all of a sudden he's attacked. And so I just think that there's an opportunity here for Spotify, a huge opportunity, right? Like, they can either completely cancel him and fire him, or they can, and which I think would be cowardly. And I can understand their perspective, but by having to do that. But I think that, like, if they were to really stand by Joe, and he's been handling it as a class act, creating multiple videos, addressing it, apologizing, owning up to it, fully authentic. And I think that he has the most loyal fan base in the world, that's giving people the opportunity to listen to real conversations that are raw, that are not scripted, that allow you to learn. And that's where we get to ultimately see different perspectives and be neutral and educate ourselves to think for ourselves. And so it would be a real shame for Spotify to take that off their platform, especially because he has the biggest platform. And so this is an opportunity for them to just put their stake on the ground, I think, and create even more loyalty as a corporation. Will they? Probably not, because they will continue to probably get attacked by government and by the left. And so it's a hard, tough situation. But I do think that ultimately Spotify as a stock, I think if I would, I don't know, depending on the situation, it could be a huge opportunity. I mean, when we look back at before Joe Rogan, they were probably around $130 to $150 a share. Joe Rogan immediately got on board. The stock rose to, I think, a high of like $320. I mean, we're talking about like over $10 billion in market cap valuation, probably even more, double that. So if you can imagine the billions of dollars that they increased in value, all for $100 million contract that Joe signed. I mean, $20 million a year, I think over 5 years. Like, that's insane. I think the value that he created. And so the stock's back down to $172. Depending on what happens here, it may go a little lower, but if they stand with Joe, I don't know about you guys, I'm curious, but I'm definitely buying for the long term. But I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Just comment below. And so he's brought his worth, and that's just getting started. I mean, he's going to continue to rise because there's just not many people left that are out there. It's a small world. I like to think of myself as one of them that likes to bring radically different opinions and have raw, unfiltered conversations. And so Joe is the leader out there that is allowing us to kind of see diverse opinions and get educated on these subjects from two different sides. And also he's a believer in psychedelics, and he is just someone who lives his life super authentically. And I just think he's a really amazing individual right now as a thought leader. And so I stand by Joe. Curious what your thoughts are. Comment below. Obviously that compilation video is terrible, and you know, it's like, yeah, he gets to sit with that and I think learn from that, and it's just a learning moment for him. And I think none of us will know what it's like to kind of get that kind of stardom and influence, but regardless, it doesn't make it right. We get to be careful in how we use those platforms, and especially in regards to race. Even for me, I remember when Black Lives Matter first came out, I remember I created a post that said all lives matter, and it was like boom, like I got a real wake-up call, and that caused me to like really retract and get curious, and started to have a friend of mine from the African American community come on a live stream with me every single day of the year of when that movement began, and just learning and sharing that information for us in the world to get educated about what they're going through, what they've been through, and their perspective. And so I get it, and we make mistakes. I think there's a lot of context missing, and when we see compilations put out there, even though it's wrong, I think there's weapons that are being used against him right now to get him removed. And we just get to, for a second, also look at that and say to ourselves that this is an important individual in the world that's allowing people to get news and get information that's authentic, and you know, it's important for us in a world that's so divided. It's important for us to have resources that are far and few right now, where we can really learn from intelligent people in the world that can give us a different perspective of what's happening, so that we can think for ourselves. And so many of these media platforms are literally so controlled to one narrative, and that's scary. You know, I don't know if you guys saw that video that Andrew put out that talked about TikTok and China using TikTok to control our younger generation. And so the media is a weapon that's being used against us. And I think that platforms like Joe Rogan's are so important for us to know that we're not going to be just swayed and controlled by the government and by a certain narrative. And so I stand with Joe. I hope you do. Curious what your thoughts are. No right or wrong here. I hope you guys know, with me, there's never going to be a right or wrong. I'm always just going to also just speak authentically my truth. That's my commitment to you. And Joe Rogan, I hope you know, bro, I appreciate all of the work that you have done, and the authenticity and the way that you have helped so many people in the world to think for themselves, to get educated, to be inspired, to laugh. Before he went on tour, he was like going to little comedy clubs, and he went to the first comedy club that he ever started at, and it was his first night, and I happened to be able to grab tickets and go to that. And it's just, this guy's career is just so inspiring to me about what's possible for us creators in building our own platforms. And so Shout out to Joe Rogan. Stay strong. Continue to just, own what what you've done in such a powerful way, like you have been, and it's modeling for all of us that when we make mistakes, how we can handle that and just take responsibility and own it, and because we're all human, we all make mistakes, and so thank you for owning it, not defending, being so authentic. It's exactly the kind of leader that we need, that's out there to just own when they make mistakes, and it's the reason why you have the platform you do. So stay strong. Spotify, I hope you stick with Joe. If you do, I'm a buyer in the stock for sure. No financial advisor, but that's my opinion. All right, guys, let me know in the comments what you think. Peace.